All right, so we're joined from Jackson by my friend Bradley Lum, CEO of MagCore, graduate of Mississippi College Law School, former Ole Miss Rebel baseball player, doing so many great things in the city of Jackson, part of the Mississippi Hope Alliance, and also had a hand in the changing of the state flag, which we'll talk about as well. So thanks again for taking some time for us today. We got a room full here with us at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for our friends at Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, and our YouTube channel. So thanks again for taking some time for us today.
Man, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for asking, and any chance to talk to high school students about life beyond high school and what it's all about is a good opportunity. So I'm glad to be here.
Now, before we get into all you do at MagCore and what the things you do in the city of Jackson, graduate of Ole Miss, played for Mike Bianco, who won the national championship last year with the Ole Miss Rebels. Played in the SEC, so you've been at the top level of college athletics. We have several young people, men and women in here that are wanting to play sports past high school. And by all means, if they can do it, they need to do it because it's a great experience. But talk a little bit about how it is to manage grades and classes while still having to be a peak athletic performer in college, because it's a lot different than high school.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, the easiest part of being a college athlete was the actual game. Life as a college athlete usually begins about 6:30 and doesn't probably end until 9 or 9:30 or 10 at night. And that includes everything from a regimented weight schedule to a regimented practice schedule to all the classes to study hall, to the nutrition and training table and all of the various things it takes, including any other events that we had to attend. So it's a really a rigorous schedule. It's probably a 60, 70 hour a week schedule to perform at that level. And, I would say that I was at the bottom tier as far as just relative to my teammates. I had a lot of really talented teammates, and the time that they spent just honing their own craft along with maintaining grades and all of that. It's a rigorous process. And so, from the standpoint of somebody wanting to become a college athlete, I think physical talent and athletic ability is one part of it. But man, there is such a mental aptitude and ability to maintain and handle all of the things that happen within college athletics and what your day-to-day looks like that you have to be successful at that level.
Yeah, and and I think you're right about that. The athletic ability is a big part of it, but you got to be able to manage time. You can't just skip practice when you want to. You can't go to class when you want to. There are GPA requirements to stay NCAA eligible. So it is, even though it is a great experience, I think it's extremely important for even if they just want to play on the JUCO level, that there are student athletes are held to a higher standard at the next level, no matter what level they play at. And that's not even counting all the traveling you guys have to do as well. Baseball probably travels more than any other sport in Division I, even more so than basketball.
That's right. Yeah, there's no question. At the end of the day, the reality of why athletics is so special and so special to me is that being in that environment prepares you for everything that happens after that environment. And so a lot of the things that have made me successful in life were predicated by the things that I did as a college athlete or as a high school athlete. And so I think it's an invaluable experience. And if you have students that have the opportunity to do that, then I would challenge them to give it all they have and move forward. But just know that it's a really tough and challenging opportunity.
Absolutely. Then you went to Mississippi College Law School. And with this being a business law class, we've talked a little about the different types of law, different types of attorneys. It's not like Law and Order where you're nailing somebody on the witness stand in front of a judge all the time. There are multiple aspects of not only law, but areas to work in law. Because even though you are licensed, you're not practicing as an attorney right now, even though you do have a JD, and you've turned it into business. So talk a little bit about, the law school experience and how law is just really in every aspect of business, whether you're an attorney or not.
Yeah, for sure. And I think so many people think that law is what you watch on Law and Order and being in a courtroom and arguing in front of a judge. I think, the reality is that law kind of is a bedrock of our society, and the need for lawyers in all kind of different ways. And not only that, even though I'm not practicing, my law degree really prepared me for some of the things that I do today. So that's been really good. I started my practice when I graduated from law school, was practicing with a firm for a period of time. And then I did everything from criminal defense law to family law, but then really found my niche in kind of mergers and acquisitions in what you would really consider business law, transactional, negotiating contracts, representing clients on different deals and opportunities, and so in kind of advising and consulting on various parts of business. And so there are so many various types of law and opportunities, and certainly what I gained, the knowledge I gained through practicing law, certainly getting my Juris Doctorate at Mississippi College, has prepared me for the things that I'm doing today.
Yeah, and one thing I always tell people, and we talk about in this class, and some of our other guests, is that we can split hairs on what we think is right and wrong, but that doesn't matter. If you're going to be in business, you have to know what the law is. If you're not paying taxes on what a property tax is in Hinds County, Madison County, or Rankin County, you're going to be on the hook for it. If you are selling something you're not supposed to be selling, you can't say, I didn't know. That's not right. You're going to be on the hook for it. So having some type of legal counsel, opening a business and running a business is just extremely important, especially if you're a new business owner or you are having even buying a home.
Yep, no doubt. And the reality of everything that we deal with on a day-to-day basis is that law and order and systems and right and wrong and how you do things and how you making sure that you are paying your taxes properly and making sure that you have a bank account, or if you want to form a company, that you go through the Secretary of State's office to file an LLC and articles of incorporation. All of these things are what create a healthy community. They create a healthy society because it is law and order. There's function. There's a functionality to the way that we do things. There is order across all that we do. We don't want people driving down the street that don't have a driver's license. So there's a process for getting a driver's license. That's law and order. Certainly you've seen in this more recently with some of the things that have happened as it relates to the Department of Health and the medical marijuana process and all of those pieces, and the process of going through and getting a prescription, and the process of somebody who's actually selling that product, and what the rigorous process they have to go through. So everything that we do in society has law and order intertwined in it, and we want to make sure that and that's a good thing, and I think we want to make sure that society functions that way.
Absolutely. Now, in a big law, you had a hand in. I know you won't take credit for it, but you had a hand in our in 2020 changing our state flag. You got together with some former athletes, and got the NCAA involved. And it took over 100 years, in a matter of days, you guys introduced legislation. And we changed our state flag for the better. I was a big believer in that as well. So talk a little bit about that, because that was a very big deal in our state's history.
Well, certainly I'm proud to have played a very small part in that process, but that really took such a large, perfectly timed ball rolling down a hill opportunity to get all of that to happen. A couple of friends of mine, one that well, John Lasseter, who really was the brainchild behind getting the NCAA involved, and saying, look, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to allow baseball players to have postseason play under the banner of this flag and not let football players or basketball players have that same opportunity. And we kind of tied that back into some of the racial disparities of sports and of those two sports and things like that, which started the ball rolling from the NCAA side, which ultimately led the NCAA to come out and ban postseason play for baseball if that flag did not get changed. That led to the SEC getting involved and doing the same thing. But you also had so many other things. You had Maisie Brown and Black Lives Matter and that big movement that was really marching kind of in the downtown Jackson area and really making their voices heard. You had all of the Black Caucus, the legislative Black Caucus, the Republican caucus, Speaker Gunn. I mean,
and the Mississippi Southern Baptist Convention.
You had the religious groups. You had all of these things culminating at one time. So it was just a perfect opportunity. It was a powder keg waiting to happen, and it took a couple of dominoes falling for us to get to that point where you ultimately could get. I mean, ultimately, all of law changes based on votes, right? Votes in the legislature, and so you had to get the votes right. And the speaker and his folks had pushed for that for a long time, and certainly others had as well. And so all of those things kind of came together at one time. And wow, I mean, if you would have told me 5 years ago that we would have gotten over that, if we would have gotten the flag changed, if we would have moved past some of that part of our history, I would have said no way. But man, look now, and you see that we can be proud to fly a Mississippi flag, and that I think that's really at the core of it, what it represents of our past. It gives us an opportunity to say this is the new Mississippi, and this is the direction that we're going forward. Certainly, there's more work to do. Which is probably part of the reason why I'm in the Department of Corrections. But that's a big part of some of the change that we've been able to make.
Yeah, and that's a great segue because that's the next thing I want to talk about is you've been the CEO of MadCorps for almost 3 years now, doing some great work because and I'm with you 100%. I'm a big believer in that. First of all, once you've served your debt to society, you have every right to work just like anybody else. And also, if we look at the reoffense statistics. We look at the people that reoffend and wind up going and becoming a convict again. That's because they don't have those skills. That's because if they never had somebody teach them these things, especially these nonviolent offenders that have short sentences. They need to be able to be a part of society when they get out, and that's what you guys do. So talk a little bit about the programs you guys have and how it works and how you got involved with it. Because I'm just such a great believer in what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit. So after I finished practicing law, or while I was practicing law, my partner and I started a trucking company of all things, and built our trucking company up to about 55 trucks, somewhere in that neighborhood, that were going back and forth to California, picking up produce out in California, coming back to Mississippi and taking fresh and frozen chicken out. So I'd really spent the last 3 or 4 years in private business growing a company. At one point in 2018, we decided to kind of go our separate ways. And so I was bought out. And at that point, started making some kind of introspective career decisions about what I really wanted to do with my life, right? And one of the things that really drew me to the prison system is just, man, what an opportunity to see society change for the better if we can figure out ways to break cycles of incarceration. The reality of our state, because of the size of our state, and because of the stranglehold that the criminal justice system has had on our state, is that if we can figure out pathways to fix this stuff, that it has generational change. It changes great-grandkids' futures if we can fix the cycles of incarceration and make it where folks are getting out, getting into sustainable positions, and never coming back, never being rearrested and coming back. And so that led me to the opportunity to take over what was then Mississippi Prison Industries. And there's a whole lot of backstory to that as well, but I just saw it as a catalyst for opportunity. And then last year during the legislative session, the corrections committees led by Chairman Juan Barnett and Chairman Kevin Horan came together and said, look, we want to make workforce a key component of the Department of Corrections. So they passed a law that created a new position, which I now have. So I'm now the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Corrections over workforce development, along with still being the CEO of that organization as well. So I kind of run a dual role, and the goal here is that everybody that's incarcerated in the state of Mississippi has an equitable path to reach sustainability through work, because we know that if you can't go out and you've got to have value, a skill set that can create value in society so that you can, create a sustainable life for yourself and your family, but doing it in a way that created a model that we were focused on upskilled jobs, and jobs that weren't just, we're going to put you in a job where you're out, nothing against somebody that's mopping the floor, but that we're putting you on a career path, that we're not just sending you to Wendy's necessarily, although that could be a good career for some people, but that we're putting you on a career path. And especially given that if you're a felon and you have that background, that we have to give you a leg up to ensure that you get out, stay out, and never come back to us. And so that's what we've been focused on. We've created career services centers at each of our prisons. We've launched an untold amount of programs. We just had a white coat ceremony for women at our Flowood CWC. They graduated with some with CNA degrees, some with phlebotomy degrees, some with medical billing and coding degrees. So we are pushing forward in as many different ways as we can. We've got a new truck driving academy that we're in the process of launching, first for women, then for men at Parchman. So it's, a little at a time, but building out a system where if you come to us at the Department of Corrections, we're going to ensure that if you want the opportunity, we're going to put you on that path to move forward and to get out, stay out, never come back to us, and ultimately start to change the bedrock of society. Start to see that there are folks that are getting out that once they have that opportunity, they never go back to incarceration. And so that's really what we're focused on.
That's incredible. And you also, it provides a great opportunity for local businesses as well, because they have the opportunity to get tax breaks hiring people out of your program. And you guys are making products that they can buy at a rate that's not as high from a big corporation. So there's
Right.
a lot of things to gain, not only from the people that are incarcerated, but from the businesses as well.
That's right. And what happens so often is we hear those employers, once they have some of our laborer that comes out and goes to work for them, they say, man, that these guys make the best managers because they've dealt with so many different personalities in prison that they can handle a lot of varying issues that come up. And so we really take pride in the fact that we don't want to just put people in jobs. We want people to we want our folks, as they're coming out, to really be seen as the cream of the crop for the labor force, that they're really ready, willing, and able to go to work and do a good job in the job that they do.
Yeah, and especially with all these manufacturing jobs that are coming up in Mississippi, even down at Ingalls, in Ingalls they are always hiring welders. And why not get one of your guys that have gotten intense training in the prison system? They get to Ingalls and they're making more than me and you.
That's right. Yeah. So we started we actually launched our first work release program. Legislature passed it last year, so we started in August, and we've got 25 individuals. It's capped at 25 by way of the legislation. But we've got 25 individuals that go out to work every day and work in public works jobs in various cities around the metro, doing regular jobs. You would not know that they're currently incarcerated. They have their regular uniform on. They go to work every day, and they make anywhere between $15 and $20 an hour doing those jobs. So you're seeing guys walk out of prison right now that have bank accounts, savings accounts of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, ready to put a down payment on a house or to put a down payment on their rent, have utilities paid for, be able to get a car, really set up for success. And those are the things that we want to be focused on. We want to set people up for success so that we leave every bit of circumstance or chance out of the equation and put them in a position to be successful.
Yeah, and that's so great what you guys are doing. And it's like I said, every person, no matter what mistakes they make, because I'm a big believer. There's a difference between people that are evil and people that make mistakes.
That's right.
So the people that have made a mistake and they've served their sentence, they really deserve a chance. And you're right, the economy depends on it. And obviously the families of the people that have committed the crime could depend on it. Now, before I get to the students' questions, you're really outspoken in the issues in the city of Jackson. And some of these, we're not in the city of Jackson, but I think it's important for people to understand. And I'm with you on so many of these things that you talk about. The potential of the capital city to be successful really affects everybody. Even if you're not a Jackson voter, the success of the city of Jackson affects everybody around it. Because that's where, when the state capital is there, and it's the largest city, there's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of potential for careers there. There's a lot of potential for tourism. There's potential for more programs, with everything going on with Jackson State football this year. It was great for the city, but it was great for the state. And obviously with the whole trash situation that's going on this week, these young people need to pay attention to these local issues. We have a state election coming up later this year. Some of these kids will be old enough to vote. We have in the city of Jackson, they have their local election 2025. These young people, no matter, I never endorse candidates. I never endorse parties. That's not my job. But I do think it's extremely important for people to understand they need to have a voice in how the government runs and how these laws are made that affect them every single day. And I know you've been very involved in some of the local issues lately. So what are some of the things that these kids need to understand that they have a voice in?
Well, first off, let me say that, my passion for Jackson comes from being around the city for a long time. I went to school in South Jackson, and just seeing all of the various changes that have taken place over the years and the narrative that, Jackson has too many problems to overcome, and Jackson can't do this, and Jackson can't do that. And as somebody who lives in Jackson, who loves Jackson, who will live in Jackson the rest of my life, since raising 4 kids in Jackson, send my kids to school in Jackson, I think it's imperative that Jacksonians, step up and say, we're not available to have stones thrown at us anymore. How about that? And we're going to step up, and we're going to find ways to lead. And so, that's caused me to get involved. My job in corrections has such a, there's so many touch points, just because, frankly, the number of felons that come back to Hinds County is the largest in the state of Mississippi. And so it gives me a lot of opportunity to reach into the community, but to just see the history of our city, the history of all the things that we've dealt with. And some are pleasant discussions and some are unpleasant discussions, but there is a reality to the city and where we are as a city. You can't just say that, it's just leadership. Well, leadership, there's certainly some room for leadership to get better. There's no question about that. But there's also some reality to the systems that have led to where we are as a city over the last 40 years. And I grew up in South Jackson. I was living in South Jackson or going to school in South Jackson when you started to see white middle class families moving to Rankin and Madison. Now, I'm not going to go back. You're playing armchair Monday morning quarterback if you're walking back and trying to say, why did somebody move or why did somebody stay or whatever. But the reality is they did. And what was a large middle class in South Jackson, particularly 68,000 residents, changed really over a period of 15 years. And so there's just been all kind of, it's a complex situation. But at the end of the day, this is our capital city. It is and should be the bright star in the state of Mississippi. Absolutely. And it's going to take all of us, white, black, red, yellow, green, blue, whoever you are, whatever you look like, wherever you come from. Let's join hands and figure out a way to make Jackson the best place in the state of Mississippi and the best place in the country. And I think we can do it. It's got the bones. It's got the people. It's got great food. It's got all of the things that, you can want. And we just have to start to put it together and really start to, I think, raise the vision of what Jacksonians think about themselves and think about where this city can go. So I'm really passionate about that. I just think that, but you got to roll your sleeves up and go do it. And that's what I'm in the process of kind of doing right now. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. And we have a few kids here that are going to be 18 or already 18. And when these elections are rolling around, if they have the same passion, they may not want to work in the government or work in the law, but they need to go in there and have their voice heard if they want to see changes made, whether it's on the state level, the county level, or the local level.
Yeah, and I think to that point, it's very, very important and something that's been lost. And I see that right now with this trash issue on whose fault is it? Is it the mayor? Is it the city council? I think so few people really have an understanding of how each government works. The municipal government may work a little different in Jackson than it does in Madison. The municipal government in Jackson may work a little different than the state government. In Jackson, we have what's considered a strong mayor, weak council form of government. So the mayor has a lot of authority as it relates to contracts and how to run and execute the day-to-day operations of the city. And so I think that if you're voting and how you're voting needs to be built around an education of what you're voting for, and not just voting for a personality or not just voting for somebody because you like how they look or you like what they said, but really, are you out there looking for the leader that can lead your place, your city, your state, your country, your county down the right path? And I think that when we start to do that better, we're going to start to see better results.
Awesome. Couldn't agree more. Now I'm gonna get to as many of these questions as I can. This first one's Jeremy Clerk. He's a senior, and he asked, "Is it ever frustrating or hard to work with convicts?"
That's a good question. I think that probably when I started, I would have said it's frustrating, and certainly it can be frustrating because there are so many challenges. We say all the time around here that everybody that we work with that comes out of incarceration or comes into incarceration has an underlying level of trauma that they've dealt with in their life. And we have to address their needs based on understanding that level of trauma. But when you love your work and you love what outcomes you want to get to, I think that whatever frustrations you may have kind of dissipate and fall by the wayside as you see the the gains and the wins and all of the positives that can come from it. So, it certainly can be challenging, but we don't let that stop us. We move forward every day.
That's awesome. I love this question here. This is Brian McMurtry. He's also a senior. And he asked, do you ever have an instance where an inmate's charges can keep them from getting a job in what they got trained in?
So that's a good question. So I would say that there's a sliding scale. One of the things that I do a lot is deal with working with our legislature to find ways to reduce the number of barriers that those people that folks that are coming out of incarceration have. Certainly, there are some jobs that we can't train for because they can't get that job. So we can't train anybody to be a nurse because they wouldn't be able to get certified by way of the Board of Health unless there were changes to the law or unless there were, some caveats to that. There are other jobs that say somebody that's been convicted of, some type of fraud. They can't get an office job. They can't handle money. They can't work in government. They can't. So we have to be very careful and cognizant of those realities. Now, the flip side of that is, if you want to go train to be a welder right now, you can get a job anywhere you want to be, no matter what you've done. Violent, nonviolent, drug offense, doesn't matter. You can get a job. And there are other trades like that where, construction trades where if you want a job, you can get it, whether you're a felon or not, it's not going to stop you. And so we try to make the decisions we make fit within the boxes of the law to certainly put people on the path that is going to give them the path of least resistance.
Oh yeah. And that just just goes to doing your research and knowing, and again, we talked about at the beginning, knowing what the law is. You can't say, well, I didn't know that. And then, it puts that person at a disadvantage. So knowing the law and what they're able to do is very important. This is DeMarnez Griffin. He's also a senior. And he asked, what is the success rate of your inmates in finding a job?
Well, another good question. So I've only been in this for really in this position for just over a year, overall for about 2.5 years. The success rate of our individuals. So post COVID, the labor shortages around the country really escalated the need for folks coming out. And so what we've spent a lot of our time over the last 12 months doing is outreach and marketing to employers about the opportunity to hire these individuals. Absolutely. So the success rate is going up. Everybody that we work with directly is getting a job, but we also understand that we have to put support systems around them because, the statistics show that like 1 out of 3 that have felony backgrounds lose their job within the first 6 months of having a job. And so our job is to take somebody and ensure that 1, we get them the first job, but 2, that we get them the second job. And so we focus a lot on those kind of things. So it's there's a moving target there. We're moving in the right direction. Ultimately, we would love to be at 100% across the board of all 5,000 to 6,000 inmates that are released every year, having those job opportunities. And we'll get there. But it's a slow moving train, and eventually we'll get where we want to be.
No, it's got a few more. This is a good one. No, this is Rod Darius Williams. He's also a senior. And he asked, what are your most popular classes amongst the inmates?
That's a good question. So from a vocational trade standpoint, we do have a lot of welders. We have a lot of folks going through welding classes. I'll tell you another popular class that we're actually building out a new facility that's going to be able to train about 50 a day, barber and cosmetology. That's a huge area that folks really are drawn to, barber and cosmetology. And it seems to be an area that there's a need for more in that field. And so we're really focused on that. But in the support service from a support services standpoint, one of the big, what we always have fewer seats than those students that want to get in those seats, like anger management, thinking for a change, types of classes that are ancillary to getting a job, but are certainly part of the process of getting people in a position where they can actually get a job and keep a job. And so we do a lot of that kind of stuff.
Cool. I just got 2 more. This is Modesty Carmichael. She's in 9th grade. And she asked, what are some of the most successful inmates that have come through your program?
some of the most successful, well, believe it or not, within MagCorps, our nonprofit, which I'm also the CEO of, we have hired about 10 of those individuals who've come out of incarceration, who now work for us. Our
Wow.
director of operations is a former inmate.
Wow.
She did 5 years and is now our director of operations. She's been with us for about 5 years, but she runs most of our day-to-day operations, from the standpoint of what our shops are doing, what they're making, our logistics team. So we have a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, we've got, believe it or not, just the talent that we have inside our prisons, we have the ability to put people in some really good jobs if we can navigate some of the legal issues. So there's a lot of success around the state.
That's incredible. All right, I just got one more from the students. And this, we got to kind of shifting gears. This is a sports question. This is James Jackson. He's a senior. And he asked, do you think it would be, how hard have you seen it be for a junior college transfer to adjust to D1 level playing in athletics?
Now, that's a good question. I think that's all dependent on what junior college you're at, and what that coach and what that program has put in place. Are they mirroring it after a D1 school? Or are they mirroring it after, a step above kind of the high school level? And I think there's a really big gap between those two things. And I think that this whole name, image, and likeness NIL stuff has really thrown a wrench in a lot of the old systems that we've had. I think that there is a lot of opportunity for kids to go through junior colleges and get to the mid-major and non-P5, Power 5 conferences. I think that there are, as we go forward, probably fewer seats available for kids to go through junior college and get to the Power 5, the SEC, Big 12, Big 10. I don't know. We'll see how that all plays out. I think that because of the transfer ability and NIL and all that kind of stuff, that there's a bigger concentration of top athletes going to those D1 schools or those Power 5 schools. So I don't know. That's a good question. I felt like I was. So what we didn't talk about was I was the pitching coach at Hines Community College before I went to law school. And so I was at the junior college level coaching. And I think that we did a really good job of preparing our guys to go to the Division I level. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's really dependent on what junior college you go to. And frankly, what high school you go to can prepare you or not prepare you for junior college or D1 or D2 or D3. And it's all dependent on what kind of coaching you're getting and what kind of administration you're getting.
Yeah. And a whole nother conversation is, this NIL actually started because of a lawsuit over video games.
That's right.
I think a lot of kids don't know, it was over these NCAA video games. They were making guys that looked like them, and they're like, hey, where's our money? And they had a great case. And
believe it or not, so there was 1 year that there was a college baseball video game, and that was my redshirt senior year, 2006. There was a college baseball video game, and I think we all got checks for like $18 to pay for our name, image, and likeness on the college baseball game. So if I remember correctly, part of that O'Bannon lawsuit gave us it was like $18 is what we got in royalties from. So I guess the college baseball game didn't do very well because we got $18.
That's pretty funny. All right, we're almost out of time. We thank you so much for joining us. But before we go, just let these kids know, why do they need to be involved in these local issues?
Well, look, local issues, local government, local politics, local is where everything gets really determined that affects your daily life.
Absolutely.
The unfortunate reality of Twitter and Facebook and social media is that everybody wants to talk about all these hot button issues that really don't have a whole lot of impact on your daily life. Your daily life is really predicated on the things that are happening at the local level.
Absolutely.
And look, getting involved in any capacity, whether it's social organizations or it's government or whatever it is, man, that's just that's the way to do life, to be involved, to give back, to be a part of it. Don't sit in the corner and toss grenades over social media, but get out there and roll your sleeves up and go get after it. And I think that, you're going to be better for it if you choose to get involved.
That's awesome. And can't think of a better person, as an example of how to get involved in local issues right there in the city of Jackson. So thank you again so much, Bradley Long,
Absolutely.
so much Department of Corrections here in the city of Jackson. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for the invite. This is great. Thanks.
See ya.
See ya.